Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's premiere. So I'm pleased to say I'm joined this evening by Chris and John. So good evening, Chris. Good evening, John.
Hello.
Hello, Simon.
Hello. Well, thanks for joining us this evening. We've got an exciting production, I think, for our viewers this evening, haven't we? Taken us back to, was it August last year?
Yep. It is a very fine day we had out in Rosedale.
Yeah, I don't think fine in terms of the weather. I think viewers this evening will maybe see the range of conditions that we saw endured during that day.
Yes, yeah.
So to set the scene for everybody this evening, Chris is just going to give a short introductory sort of presentation. At any point during the course of the evening, if you want to ask any questions, you can email me through on the email address shown below, or you can use the chat box if you're watching on a computer on YouTube. Send your questions into there, and then what we can do is put those questions to these two gentlemen after the presentation. So I think what we'll do is we'll start off with Chris. So Chris, it's over to you.
Hello, thank you, Simon, and hello, everybody. I just wanted to start this evening's presentation of the Rosedale Mines and Railway video with perhaps a little bit of a background. During the film, I do mention that the Society has a very long association with Rosedale and its mines and railway. And on the screen now you can see a copy, or the front cover of the first edition of the Society's book, Rosedale Mines and Railway, published in 1974. When the Society was still known as the Scarborough and District Archaeological Society. So on the face of it, our association with Rosedale goes back to the writing of that book in 1974. However, that's not the first version of it. A publication on the Rosedale Mines and Railway appeared in our Transactions, volume number 2, number 11 in 1968, and this was published as an off-print, as you can see here, from the Transactions, and subsequently that was expanded to form the book, which has been such a good seller for the Society since then. And the authors were Raymond Hayes and Jim Rutter. Now there might be quite a few members of the Society who don't know a great deal about Raymond Hayes and Jim Rutter, so I just thought I'd say one or two words about them, particularly Raymond Hayes. I didn't know Jim Rutter all that well, but I knew Raymond Hayes pretty well going back into the early 70s. And here they are. This is Jim Rutter here, and Raymond Hayes with the beret on behind. This is a photograph taken during the Society's excavations up on Levisham Moor. And I have to say that the standard of dress of the digging team back then is far better than it is now. I've never seen any of our people digging in ties, let alone jackets. But great times. And just for other Society members, this is Frank Rimington, one of the founders of the Society, Robin Shepherd, George Pye, as I've also said, Jim Rutter, who was the curator of what we now call the Rotunda Museum, but actually back then was called the Scarborough Museum, and Raymond Hayes behind us here. For those of you who have watched the film The Dig, which is getting a lot of publicity nowadays, Raymond was very much in the same mould as Basil Brown, an autodidact whose knowledge of the archaeology of the North York Moors was absolutely extensive. And he didn't confine himself to one period. So although he and Jim Rutter wrote the book on Rosedale Mines and Railway, they also published a book on the crook frame buildings in Rydale and Eskdale, which was a groundbreaking piece of work in its time on the vernacular architecture of the area, and a book on Wade's Causeway, which the Society had done excavations in. So their range of interest was from the Romans, actually earlier than the Romans, right through to the Industrial Revolution. And interestingly, as many of you know, I'm from Great Ayton, and the first excavation I ever saw was up on Great Ayton Moor, these Monument Hill, as many people call it. And Raymond Hayes's publication on the chambered cairn adjacent monuments on the moor, I was just glancing at it the other day after watching the dig. And interestingly, unlike Basil Brown, Raymond refers to the valuable advice and assistance that Charles Phillips gave, which is not the not the impression we get from the film. But Raymond was from that locality, and his interest in the Rosedale Mines and Railway goes back way beyond this time. I think there's reference in the book to a workers' educational class in 1965. I'm not sure whether Raymond ran that or Jim Rutter, or maybe both. But I've got a few pictures, some from our archive and some from other sources here, of showing Raymond's very early interest in the railway. This is on the east side, the east side kilns, which must have just gone out of use because they're intact. Up at the top here, this is Raymond Hayes here, my suit, the camera, and his binoculars. Love these socks. They're designed to fool adders, actually. If you're out on the moors, I don't know who these two characters are, but a superb image of Raymond exploring what was already at the time becoming archaeology. And this also is on the east side at what is called the depot. You can see the photograph is Hayes 301. This is Raymond's writing here. Here he is. He's obviously set up the camera for a time-lapse image and run and got onto the back of the brake van there, which is why he's a little bit blurred. I think this must be taken at the time the railway is being dismantled. This track has been taken up here. A nice example of a Northeastern Railway birdcage brake van. And another image in the same location. So we can see down here the railway being dismantled. You can just imagine what would then be His Majesty's Inspectorate of Railways having a fit at the sight of these people jumping up and down onto the guards van on what is not only an active railway, but also a demolition site. It wouldn't happen nowadays, but it's really nice to have these. This one's come from the Land of Iron project, but we've also got it in the Society's archive as well. So that's just a little bit of background to the characters who were involved in writing the first book, which has now gone out of print. It's been almost continuously in print since 1974 till 2009, and we've just finished selling the last print run, which was about 2000. So that's a little bit of history. Just before we go to the film, I just wanted to show a couple of maps showing the wider context. As the film starts, it zooms into Rosedale, so you get an impression of where it is. But I've got this map of 1923, published by the London and North Eastern Railway, showing their network at the time. And here's the Rosedale Mineral Railway. I'll just go a little bit closer in. Running from Battersby Junction up the famous Ingleby Incline, running onto Blakey Junction, and then down to the Bank Top terminus, which is where the filming, or a lot of the filming, took place. The film you're going to see tonight concentrates on the east side, and then there's a spur running around to the Rosedale East terminus, where the photographs of the guys jumping on and off the goods, the guards van are shown, and the kilns are there. So the East Mines are here, West Mines, and the Sheriff's Mines, which I haven't labelled there. So the film starts down at the bottom here at the West Mines and ends up at the Bank Top there. So we're going to show the film, and then I think we've got one or two outtakes afterwards, have we not, Simon and John? Which will, I hope, bring a little bit of amusement to this evening's proceedings. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So what we'll do now is we'll hopefully let you enjoy the video. So cue that up now.
It's good to see you, my old friend. Seems I knew you were a lifetime away. I've been traveling on this road and made some mistakes on the way, and I'm learning to breathe again through shadows of the past, and the call of the curlew tells me I'm home at last, and time will take its time. For a moment, fair Rosedale is mine. One day, good friend.
Welcome to Scarborough Archaeological and Historical Society's second archaeological video tour that we're making during the pandemic. We're now in beautiful Rosedale, and as we look around, we see this fantastic countryside, and little do we know that in the past this was a hive of industrial activity with mining for ironstone. Our Archaeological Society has a long association with Rosedale through one of our founder members, Raymond Hayes, and in 1974, along with Jim Rutter, who was the curator of the Rotunda Museum, he published this excellent book, Rosedale Mines and Railway, which has been a fantastic resource, although now sadly it's just going out of print. In the 1850s, the population of Rosedale was about 580, and by 1871 it had risen to nearly 3,000, which indicates just the high level of industrial activity which was going on here. And through this tour we're going to be looking at one or two of the sites on the west side of Rosedale. So I'm just going to head off now to look at one of the earliest quarries and mines. And here we are in Rosedale West Mines, which was the location of the earliest ironstone mining activity in Rosedale. Technically speaking, it's called Hollins Mines, and it started working the ironstone in about 1856 from two deposits of what's called magnetite, the Kitchens and the Garbutt's deposits. And this ore had about 60% of iron in it, which made it a very rich ore in comparison to the remainder of the ironstone mined in the rest of Cleveland. Initially it was taken out by horse and cart, about 4,000 tonnes of it, down towards Pickering where the nearest railhead was. Ultimately another railhead was provided by the railway which comes across the moors up Ingleby Incline at the top of the hill at Bank Top here, which we'll go and visit shortly. Initially the magnetite was worked by open casting or quarrying, but later on the mines consisted of drifts driven into the hillside behind us, and later on still they were working what was called the top seam, which was a lower quality of ironstone, around about 38% I think, more consistent with the other ironstones in the region. I have here a copy of the mine abandonment plan, from which you can see the Kitchens and Garbutt's deposits taking a sort of oval shape, and as you look behind me you see the huge scoop out of the hillside where the magnetite has been quarried away. The mine abandonment plan also shows the way in which the drifts are driven into the hillside for the working of the top seam in a system called pillar and board working. And you can see, if you look closely, the position of the drifts behind me. And now that we've had a look at this, I'm going to go to the inclined foot and show you how the ore was taken out once the inclined plane had been built, taking the ore away to the railhead. When the railhead was eventually brought into Rosedale, to Rosedale Bank Top, the difficulty with it was half a mile away from the mines and 400 feet higher. The cottages on the skyline there are railway workers' cottages, so that marks the approximate indication of where the railhead was. The mining company had already got an inclined plane in here to take ore up to there, and I'm standing very near to the bottom of the incline. Actually, it's just over here on this private land, this flat area here, but you can see it running away up the hillside here, and with a bit of struggle I'm going to walk up there to the point where it comes out on the Rosedale Chimney Road. Phew, well that was a bit of a pull. I'm about 3/4 of the way up the incline now, so we'll just have a little break to see one or two other things we can see from the incline. To my left here there's this like a platform running around the hillside. That's further evidence of mining working the top seam. And lower down there's the sites of houses. As I mentioned earlier on, the population of Rosedale increased from about in the 500s up to over 2,800 at the height of mining, which means that people had to have houses to live in. And just down here you can see a platform. There's a fence running along the back of it there, and that was a row of terrace houses called High Row, which are quite clearly shown on the first large-scale Ordnance Survey map, or the first 25-inch map of 1893. And then further down, if you could just see the road there and a red roof just this side of it, there's another row of houses there called Low Row. Again, a row of workers' houses which is visible on the large-scale Ordnance Survey map. And further up the valley there were even more rows. So we'll just finish our progress up the incline to the Chimney Bank Road. So the embankment behind me is where Chimney Bank Road crosses the alignment of the tramway. When they built the tramway, they actually realigned the road. They put a loop in, and for those of you who know this area, where the car park is at Chimney Bank Top is actually on the old alignment of the road. The tramway ran under the road, under a bridge, and although Raymond Hayes and Jim Rutter tell us that the West Mines had gone out of use by 1885, the bridge remained in situ for many years after that. We've got this fantastic photograph taken by Charles Moisley in about 1934 showing the bridge in situ, and better still we've got this earlier photograph taken showing William Hayes, Raymond Hayes' father, with his family sitting just about here where the bridge was. I think he must have taken this on a sort of time-lapse shot. It's an absolutely fantastic family picture. William Hayes was a photographer, and his studio is now at Hutley Hole Museum. So I'm just going to go over the embankment and finish off by completing the final section of the incline at the other side of the road. Oh, before we go, I forgot about this brick. there's lots of bricks lying around here which are detritus from the mining structures, but this one, I don't know how whether you can see it, says Pease. It's a Pease's fire brick from County Durham. May have been used in the kilns, which we'll look at later on. Okay, so I've just come over the road where the bridge was taking the road over the tramway, and I'm going to continue up the incline past the calcining kilns over here, which I'll talk about later on, and we're going to look at where the engine house that operated the incline. We're at the very end of the incline plane which the tramway was running on. Behind me is the standard gauge railway track coming from Ingleby Bank Top. So behind me, and we'll go and have a look at it in a minute, will be a steam engine which was used to draw the laden trucks up the tramway, up the incline plane, loaded with ironstone, which would then be manoeuvred over in this direction to the top of the calcining kilns, and then we're going to have a look at those a little bit later on. So this branch of the railway served several functions. There's two coal depots, one close by which had gone out of use by 1893, and we think that was for supplying coal to the tops of the kilns, and you can just see running over here the route of a possible tramway for the trucks of coal to be taken to the top of the kilns. And then further on, just about where the dustbins are on the horizon, was another coal depot, and that was still in use in the 1890s, and that had I think 5 bays for where the coal was tipped into from the wagons, and a public way bridge for weighing presumably horse-drawn trucks which are taking the coal away. So we're going to cross the railway line, and the ropes drawing the wagons up the incline must have crossed the railway line on some kind of timber gantry. We're going to cross the railway line and go and have a look at where the engine house was and the reservoir. So here we are at the reservoir beyond the end of the incline plane, which is over there. This reservoir was constructed to provide a water supply for the boiler house, for the steam hauling engine working the incline plane, for locomotives on the standard gauge railway running along here, and also for the workers' houses over there. And we've got this fantastic image here of kids playing on the reservoir when it was frozen. I think that's an absolutely wonderful photograph. The engine house is just down here where these humps and bumps are in the grass. There was an engine house, its associated boiler house, and famously the Rosedale chimney, of which we've got several photographs of when it was standing, and this photograph of when it was being demolished in 1972. Loss of a very well-known local landmark at the time. Now we're at the back of one of the calcining kilns. I'll explain a little bit later on about what calcining is. But basically this kiln, it consists of a trough built against the bank. You can see the back wall of it here, and 4 draw arches running down here. Basically, I suppose it's like an overgrown lime kiln. So we'd go now down to the front of the kilns and have a closer look at them from there. So we're now at the foot of the calcining kilns. Calcining is the roasting of the ore. It's heated up and roasted, and the reason for that is you drive off impurities such as sulphur, carbon dioxide, and that has several consequences. One is it reduces the weight, So reducing the weight reduces your transport costs, but it also makes the ore more suitable for use in blast furnaces. And what we have here is a bank of 2 kilns, the older ones here and the newer ones over here. We'll just go a little bit closer and look at the distinction between the two. So we're close up to the kilns now. This bank, or range this way, was built about 1861. It's got narrow round-headed arches, fantastic stonework, and this batter on the side, which indicates to us that this bank of kilns behind me running this way is a little bit later, because it's putting up against this batter. These have wider arches, they're higher, with semicircular heads, and we do have this excellent photograph taken by Charles Moisey in about 1934 showing the kilns intact. Obviously this quality of stone is really good building stone, and it would be robbed away for use elsewhere, which is why all we've got now is the arches, because they're not really reusable. But absolutely fantastic structures, really fantastic piece of industrial architecture, as it were. So when the ore had been roasted sufficiently, it was loaded direct into wagons. It was shovelled out of the draw arches into specially built metal-bodied railway wagons. Because it was still hot, you couldn't have loaded it straight into the usual timber-bodied wagons. So we're standing here on the track where the wagons would be stood as they were loaded. The calcining was on the basis of about 1 part coal to 26 parts of ironstone or iron ore, and initially locally mined coal would be used. So I'm standing on the track bed now where the trucks would have been lined up for loading at the calcining kilns and then drawn backwards up onto the main line up by the engine shed where we're going to visit in a minute. And just down below me, something we'll look at as we pass by, are the heaps of what's called calcined dust, a fine dust which was left after the ore was calcined. So here we have the piles of calcined dust, which were a waste product of the calcining process in the kilns and were tipped down here. Later on they became a valuable product in their own right, especially from the east side mines. The calcined dust was taken away because it was found it could be used in furnaces in the iron making process. We're coming now close to the junction between the 2 spurs of the railway. This upper one here is the one which runs to the coal depots, the 2 coal depots I mentioned earlier on. And also I have a plan produced by the North Eastern Railway in 1908 of their infrastructure here, and it does show a loading gantry further along, and I think that was possibly used for loading calcined dust for taking away after the mines had ceased. Down here is the lower track going to the calcining kilns, and below us the remnants of a much larger number of railway houses, and I'll come back and talk about those a little bit later on. We're now going to go a little bit further along towards the engine shed, and we've got this absolutely fantastic photograph of the engine shed in use with the snowplough parked on this lower track. The track itself had gone out of use because it was no longer serving the calcining kilns, but it was used as a spur siding for stationing the snowploughs, which were invaluable in the winter period because, as you can imagine, up here the line often got blocked by snow. Right, we're actually standing inside what was the engine shed. It was a 2-road shed, 2x2 road, it means two tracks. Because the engine shed was the only one on the line, it remained in use for many years after the mines had ceased. We have this fantastic photograph of 1936, not long after the shed had gone out of use, and these other photographs showing a locomotive standing outside the shed. Where we are now is the pit, where routine maintenance was done for the locomotives. The engine shed, after it had gone out of use, the stone was taken down and the stone was reused in the building of Huttonley Hole Village Hall. So if you go down to Huttonley Hole, you can see what is in effect the old Rosedale engine shed, although the design is different from the shed, but the stone is the very stone from here. Around about this point, as we know from the North Eastern Railway plan, was a blacksmith shop and some shear legs, and we also can see the shear legs in old photographs of the engine shed. The shear legs were needed because when the locomotives needed to go away for heavy maintenance to Darlington, and they had to be lowered down the inclined plane at Ingleby, the centre set of wheels had to be taken out. Actually, what happened was they lifted the locomotive, took the rear wheels out, then moved the centre set back into the position of the rear wheels. That allowed the locomotive at the incline to go over the break of slope more easily. It would have tipped up otherwise. But we have these fantastic photographs of locomotives at the shed and being lifted and the wheels being taken out. Well, I've come now to the other side of the railway line to have a look at this little group of cottages here, which is all that's left of a much larger group of cottages for railway workers built by the North Eastern Railway. You can see a level platform here where another row of houses, and we can see from the plan that North Eastern Railway produced in 1908 that there's this array of hen houses and pigsties. It looks like every household had their own hen house and their own pigsty located around here. So these few have survived, and in fact one of these between 1935 and 1953 was a youth hostel, and we've got this photograph showing the youth hostel during that period. Must have been a windy place to come, especially having ridden your bike up Chimney Bank Hill. Must have been quite something as a youth hostel. Right, we're coming towards the end of our video tour of the industrial archaeology of Rosedale West Side. We've got the kilns over here, the mines a long distance away in the background down below us, the railway workers' cottages here, and finally this fantastic image of a train with a brake van and one of the founder members of Scarborough Archaeological and Historical Society, Raymond Hayes, who took many of these historic images, actually hanging off the brake van. I think that's a fantastic point in which to finish, and I hope you've enjoyed this tour, and I hope in due course you'll make your own way up here and have a look at what there is to see. Goodbye, thank you.
Good to see you, my old friend. Seems I knew you a lifetime away. I've been traveling on this road and made some mistakes on the way, and I'm learning to breathe again through shadows of the past. And the call of the curlew tells me I'm home at last, and time will take its time. For a moment, fair Rosedale is mine. One day, a good friend once told me, everything happens for a reason. I enjoyed the good times, I rode out the bad, grew stronger with each passing season. And I'm learning to breathe again through shadows of the past. And the call of the curlew tells me I'm home at last, and time will take its time. For a moment, fair Rosedale is mine. I came here when my dreams were new. Some fell by the wayside and some came true. It's just the music, it's just these songs that've carried me all this way through. And I'm learning to breathe again through shadows of the past. And the call of the curlew tells me I'm home at last. And time will take its time for a moment.
So thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. So welcome back to Chris and John. And you see Chris's attire is slightly improved, but mine hasn't during the course of
this
that.
is my Dennis Norden tie and jacket, the significance of which will be apparent shortly, I think.
That's it. Well, just before we go to the more embarrassing moments of our things, Alison sent a question in. She says, for those like me that do not know the area well, is it possible to walk the route in a day? If so, please could you share the route at some point?
Yeah, it's eminently walkable, Alison, eminently walkable. In fact, quite a lot of people go up there, and there's various routes you can do. The national park, I think, have what they call promoted routes, which I think are available on their website. So you can walk go to the incline top at Bank Top and walk to Sheriff's Pit. You can actually go right round. It's quite a long day. In fact, a few years ago, the society actually had a public walk up there, which I led. So yeah, it's great. It's a great place for walking.
Although I think we're going to show in maybe a video in a moment that maybe there's a route that she shouldn't take if she went up there. I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, unless you rose, of course.
Yeah. So stay tuned, Alison. You might just find a direction that you didn't want to go in. And I think you wanted to mention something as well, Chris.
Well, while I was just watching the film there, both my great grandfather and my granddad were mechanical engineers in the in the ironstone mining industry. My great granddad was the engineer in charge of Upleatham mines, and my granddad at Great Ayton mines. And as I was talking there, I just suddenly, as I say, steam engine, I just suddenly heard my granddad. It was really bizarre. I was just the way I said steam engine at several occasions. It just took me back, because he obviously knew the Rosedale Mines and Railway. He could remember the Ingleby incline working, and he used to tell me about that and all sorts of things in the ironstone mining, which is, I suppose, one of the reasons I developed quite an early interest in industrial archaeology. Yeah.
Okay. In the absence of any other questions, maybe whilst I've got two archaeologists on it, obviously we've watched the video there, and there's an awful lot we know about Rosedale mines and things like that. So what's the role of an archaeologist in looking at a place like Rosedale?
Well, you can always learn more about places. For instance, last September it was, a few of us were working with an archaeologist called Andy Abson through the National Parks Land of Iron project, doing survey work on the Navvy camp, which is hardly known about. Like all railways, it was built by navvies, gangs of navvies who had camps or barrack blocks where they lived during the course of the construction, and we were surveying that, so finding a lot more about the layout of that camp, which is, there's nothing published on it yet. There's always more to learn about places. I was thinking about this the other day in relation to where the inclined plane where the rope goes across the standard gauge railway up to the engine house. And I was thinking, if that was some kind of other archaeology, you would say that the standard gauge railway post-dated the inclined plane by quite a long time, because it had obviously cut through it. Whether that applies to this site or not, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's always worth bringing an archaeology side to things. I'm sure John will agree with that.
No, absolutely, Chris. And I think, I think if Marie were here, she'd probably point out that, she carried out a watching brief on the works that they did to improve the access along the track itself. And that threw up more information about different culverts, the water management systems, the track bed. So, the documents take you so far, but then there's always the physical evidence takes you that much further. And of course, it takes you into contact with the material culture of the time. So the objects, the bits of pot that comes out, the clay pipes that they're smoking, all of these elements, the different bricks, as the Pease bricks, for instance, which have been brought down from County Durham, the physical evidence that archaeology brings to the interpretation of these places is incredibly valuable and gives us a much broader and in-depth picture of the industry itself. And I think there's an awful lot more work to do up there.
And Darren's asked, why the arches over a fire? Did one get dropped onto the top of the coal from a trap in the carriage?
Sorry.
Why the arches over a fire? Did they all get dropped onto the top of coal from a trap in the carriage? So I think it's how were the the furnaces loaded, presumably? Something.
Yeah, but it's loaded from above. I suppose there would, I don't fully know the answer to that. In some places, the ore wagon is on a kind of a tippler which turns it right over to tip it out, or whether the wagons had a tipping body, I don't know. These were only quite small trucks because they're coming out of the mine, but the precise mechanism whereby they're tipped from that top area into the top of the kiln, I don't actually know. I'll try and get back to Darren on that one.
Okay. Right. So, gentlemen, I think it's time for us to maybe
embarrass
ourselves, shall we? So, so hopefully everybody, we'll just now play some of the outtakes from and things. So.
Like something out of Jurassic Park, I feel like we're going to get.
Well, it's alright for these tall ranges, isn't it? I feel like an Ewok.
No, you've not lost me. Are you on video with it? Blooper number 1. That can't go in.
Region. I have here a copy of the mine abandonment
Yeah, so just work.
So what are these features on the inside here, Chris? These rebates?
Nobody knows nobody really knows how.
Shelter, shelter.
Fantastic map produced by the North Eastern Railway in 1908, showing their infrastructure at the time.
What
So-
we're saying here? What's going on?
We've just got later on. Okay, have we got that?
Yeah, we've got that, and we've also got a cow about doing it. Can I get some video of the cow?
Does it go into the picture? The tower is now the only freestanding building which seems to. Oh, no, start again. The only bird was putting me off.
Presume. Okay, well, we hope you enjoyed that. It's not too embarrassing for all of us. There's various wildlife joined us on the filming. I think with the drone as well, we were warned as well. We had to get the filming in before the end of August, or before the glorious 12th, I think. Was that right? Otherwise, our drone might have been...
Might have been shot down. Yes, yes. Yeah.
No, we have the question from Mark on the Land of Ironstone project. Is how far it is along? Is the HLF money all spent, or is there more years of work to do?
No, the project comes to an end at the end of this month. The funding comes to the end of this month. Although I think the Land of Iron staff continue for another couple of months, working away at things. But the project is in effect ended. But they are raising money to do some more consolidation work on the kilns. But that's another project. So it's. Yeah, all the interpretation boards are in place. I mean, it's not only at Rosedale, but if you go, for instance, to the Escabally mine near Gromont, there's work being done there, putting new interpretation boards in and work on the bridges and so on. Yeah, it's been a great project.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else to add, John, or anything as we're wrapping up now?
No, I think that covers it all nicely, Chris. Yeah, it's been a really interesting piece of work up there. And it's certainly, the access improvements and the conservation work have been excellent.
Excellent. Right. Well, gentlemen, in the absence of any other questions, I think all that remains for me to do is to thank you very much for your sterling effort, and to Marie as well for. I think personally is a fabulous production. I think. I mean, we got this out before the Bond film, which kept being delayed, wasn't it? So,
Hey!
Yeah, and I think we look forward to making some more, don't we, guys?
Absolutely. If we can all get our CRB checks through, then the world will be our oyster.
Okay, so thank you very much, gentlemen. In 2 weeks' time, we've got Catherine Ferry, who will be joining us to talk about the genius that is Eugenius. I believe talking about Eugenius Birch. So we look forward to joining excuse me. Look forward to you all joining us in 2 weeks' time. So thank you very much, everybody, and good night.